loud. And then I'm going to get us going on Facebook. I don't know what this means. It says this endpoint is deprecated and will not be accessible once the next graph IPI version is released. What is that even saying to me? Taking a
Sounds like there's some kind of feature that needs to be upgraded.
Okay, so I can.
Looks like it's recording to the cloud.
Okay, can only still, yeah, recording to the cloud, but I'm trying to share to our Facebook group. There we go.
Okay.
It might be because I've got a super old computer. It's like, you need to upgrade.
Or maybe the software that we're using to talk to Facebook is maybe a little old and it needs to be an update.
Yeah.
Because deprecated usually means that the
So somebody needs
old
to
code would work, but
remote access.
Hopefully, I took a screenshot of it in case I have to give it to Everett, but I don't know. Might be my computer, might be the program I have.
It says it's live on Facebook now. So.
Yeah, sometimes on my end it always takes a little longer.
Yeah, yours is going. It's going good.
Cool, we're good. Okay, welcome everybody. Just if you're in the audience, please make sure you've got your mics off, your cameras off, and we are just about to get this started. We're going, okay.
Oh, also one more announcement. If you guys have like default accounts or something, and it says something like Zoom user or iPhone or tablet or something, could you just rename yourself? Like right click on the little 3 dots on your square and hit rename, and you can just type something in there. Well, maybe your first name and where you're from would be good.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, please use your real name if you would be willing to. Okay, and please keep in mind that this is being recorded. We're going to have it on YouTube and Facebook. So if you don't want to be recorded, you might want to choose to either get out, or you can keep your sound and your audio, your audio and your video off, and it will not pick you up. So, all right. Okay, well, we just wanted to welcome you guys out to the podcast tonight. I am Celeste, one of your hosts, and I'm here with Corey and one other host. And then tonight we have Christina. She is sitting in for Everett, who is unable to be with us tonight. So our guest in the hot seat is Ryan, and he is going to be a lot of fun. We can tell already. He's going to give us a good podcast. So just real quick before we get started, just make sure you give us a like on Facebook and also a subscription on YouTube if you're willing, and spread the news to all your friends and family and have them come out and enjoy the podcast. So, okay. All right, so we're going to start out just learning a little bit about you, Ryan, like where you're from, how you grew up, your family, just the beginnings. Let's hear about your beginnings.
All right, well, I was born at a very young age. And then, so I grew up in the church. Let's see, family's not like, 13th generation members of the church or anything like that, but then went on a mission, went to California speaking English, which is, I guess, kind of the mission that everyone worries that they're going to get, like, oh, I'm just speaking English, I don't get to learn Spanish or something. But no, it was good. And and so I don't know, I was a band nerd in high school and played in the jazz and orchestra and stuff. And then
what did you play?
I was a trombone.
Oh, cool.
So low brass for the win.
Still play?
No. I basically didn't play since I graduated high school. So
you're like Commander Riker then, right?
Yep, so I actually knew a guy in high school that was the reason he went to learn trombone, was because he just idolized Commander Riker from Star Trek: The Next Generation. And
only
that was not the reason.
I had no idea. I'm like, what?
Commander.
No, that wasn't my reason. I actually wanted to learn French horn first because I felt like they got all the best parts. So like in like the soaring solos and stuff in like, Star Wars and things, like, which was, one of some of the first music that I fell in love with. The French horns get the best part. And if you're listening to like Peter and the Wolf, like the wolf is played by 5 French horns, and it's just amazing sounding. But unfortunately, when I got started in about like 5th grade, they didn't offer French horn at that level. And so it was kind of like, well, pick something else. And my dad happened to have a trombone that he picked up like in college that he played for just a couple semesters or something. And so I picked that up and I stuck with it through to the end of high school. And I kind of got to live my dream playing trombone. My senior year, we had a concert in the orchestra where we did a pops concert. And so we were playing all kinds of movie themes and things. And so I actually got to play Star Wars as a senior in high school with the orchestra. And so at that point, I had peaked in my eyes. And so like, that was kind of like, as high as I ever wanted to get. I mean, I obviously could have played it better and stuff with more years of practice and experience and whatnot. But and then pretty much the last performance I was in was at graduation. I was in a little jazz combo with some of the other seniors and got to be on the big screen for the graduation for that, and pretty much haven't played since. So as for musical instruments, there's what?
You think you could play if you just picked it up?
I could. My mouth would feel real funny because my lips are not used to buzzing in the mouthpiece anymore because it's been 20 years or something. So there's actually another instrument called a duduk that's out of kind of like the Middle East. It's a double reed instrument, which I did not have any experience playing in high school, but it's a fairly simple fingering, kind of like a recorder. And so I've got one of those. I don't practice. It's one of those like on the back burner, like I'll get to this when I've got free time, or one of those hobbies. But I don't know, it's a real common instrument in a lot of like movie scores and stuff. It's a flavor that a lot of composers are using nowadays.
Oh, cool.
And it's got a really cool sound to it. And
So would you say that you were musically inclined? Does that come easily for you to just pick up an instrument and play?
No, I wouldn't exactly say that. I'm not one of those people where they just like pick up like a dozen different instruments and they just like immediately can just jump to one and jump to another and jump to another. And they're almost kind of like not having to do the first couple of years of learning.
Right.
I'm not one of those people. So my brother was a little bit better at that. So actually I'm the oldest of 3 boys, and the middle one, he's the savant of the family. He's the one that's the linguist and the musician and he's the smart one.
Oh gosh.
The youngest brother is the funny one, and probably the best looking one. So I'm just kind of the medium one. So I was the prototype.
So do you play by memory, or can you still read notes? Because I used to play the piano and I can play a few songs here and there by memory. But if you ask me to read notes, I'd be like, I know that's a do and there's a re and mi. Yeah.
I'd have to. That's a good question. I'd have to try. It's been a while. I mean, when I'm like singing hymns in church, for example, like I'll still use the clef and stuff to know kind of where I'm supposed to be. And so I'll be like, okay, well, this is only about a half step. But if you gave me a note and said, now sing a whole step above that, I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. I kind of had to choose between choir and band going into high school, and I picked band, and
so
singing didn't go any further. What?
I played.
You sing? You like to sing? You're a good singer?
I'm an okay singer. Singing in church, I can like switch between like the melody and then the bass line. If I try and do the treble line, I usually start making mistakes. And so I usually avoid that. But
can you do a sea shanty?
No, I don't know any sea shanties. I wish I did. That would be really cool.
Yeah,
but
those guys
have
to sing really well. They just have to. You just need like a leader to kind of like say the first chant, and they just need a bunch of dudes to kind of harmonize in the background. And
yeah,
I don't know. I've been getting the sea shanties lately. I don't know about you, but they're actually pretty cool music. I don't know if you've ever heard sea shanties before.
Which one of the hymns is actually based on a sea shanty. I can't remember. Gosh, I can't look. Someone's gonna have to look it up.
Someone in
But
the
yeah.
audience.
Oh no. So
Then
it's
let's start,
the
a note. A tip.
it's the national anthem. It's yeah, I think it's the national anthem is based on a sea or like a drinking song. Like it
Oh, is
started
it?
as a drinking. Yeah, it's. I think
Have
it's
Okay, this is totally side note, but have you guys seen that YouTube video where I think it's YouTube where it's like it's a comedian and he calls like one of the hymns like the pirate hymn and it's like
yes,
Yeah.
Steve Solberg. I've seen him. Yeah,
It's so funny. And he's like, "Hey," and he's like going into it. Anyway, I don't remember which hymn that was.
Yep.
Gotta look that one up. That one's funny.
Yeah. So you guys have to like hear like a quick sea shanty to kind of get what it's all about. Like,
I just know the one from the
You don't
old
wanna
like
get
2000
booted
Leagues
from
Under the Sea
YouTube.
one.
Vikings.
You
That's
don't
all I
want to
can
get booted
think of.
for copyright issues.
try this. Check this out.
Leave a job, leave a poor Jack.
Song.
Don't forget your old shipmates. Rolly, 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 go.
They got some cool stuff. You should check it out sometime.
Yeah, check
That
those
sounds
out.
like the pirate song. That sounds like the pirate hymn, whatever they called it.
No, they're sailor songs. They're like it keeps them kind of going on the ship. You know, it gets boring on a ship.
Mine
So,
would be the
Kind of
Vikings.
going. They you know,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
it's interesting. I mean, you should try it out sometime. If you're driving to work sometime, throw some sea shanties on. It's
You walk into work and you're like, "Doot, doot," you know, feel like
you're like, I'm ready to work. I don't know why, but I have energy to work.
"Hey there, matey.
Oh my gosh.
Here at work." Okay, sorry, totally off the subject.
Uh,
Okay, Ryan. Okay,
Yeah.
you were born in the church. You don't go back a whole bunch of generations. So where did the church begin with your family?
Yeah. So my mom's a convert. She found it in college shortly before meeting my dad at the kind of the institute and stuff. And then my dad's parents joined the church as just converts.
Oh wow.
And so they were kind of a younger couple, I guess, and missionaries kept coming by, and eventually they joined the church. I actually think I think it was much later in life that they actually finally did their wedding sealing, because I think I remember that when I was actually a little kid. We were living in Virginia at the time, and they went to I remember that there was kind of a big deal that like mom and dad and grandma and grandpa were going to the temple, and it was the Washington D.C. temple. And
Pretty one.
yep, it's pretty. I've not been inside because I was like 6, but and did not need to be there for the ceremony, the ordinance and stuff. But
Right.
Supposed to
yeah, it's
reopen
one of the really pretty ones. What?
They're supposed to reopen ours for like we were having an open house last year, and then COVID hit. So like there was no open house. Like they had just remodeled it, and so we didn't get the open house out here. It's been shut for a year. So like there's rumor that they're gonna reopen it. I don't know if they're gonna do the open house because of COVID.
Yeah,
I don't know. So
They'll probably skip that at this point and do one down.
it's gonna stink because that's such a big deal for people that live out here.
Mhm.
Because that temple's been
Oh,
around
yeah.
a long time,
Mhm.
and there's people that have always wanted to go inside, and here's your chance
yeah,
before it's relocated. So
oh.
yeah. That's one of the big 3. That, Salt Lake, and Los Angeles are the top 3 for square footage. So
Really.
yeah,
it's big. I've been in the DC one. It's big.
It's pretty. I just know that. Like you come around the corner or the mountain or wherever, and it's like bam, it's just like right there.
It's in the trees,
Yep.
so it looks like a
Whoa.
fairy tale castle. It's like in the trees. Like yeah.
I think that's one of the ones where like after they open it and they turn the lights on, there was a series of like there was a period of time right after there where there was a frequent number of accidents where just like boom, there was a temple and people were not paying it, they were not ready for it, and so they were a little distracted while they were driving.
They're like, whoa, what is that?
Right.
Yeah,
now everyone's used to it, but
Temple. Like on the freeway, you can see like, oh, it's a castle. Every time
Yeah,
one
San
of
Diego's
my friends is
huge.
like, that castle, that's your church. I'm like, yeah, the
It's
temple.
yeah,
temple for my church.
yeah. San Diego's like that too, where the highway just kind of like it weaves the winds and stuff, and you come around this turn and it's just like it comes up out of the groundish.
Yeah.
So
That's actually my
beautiful.
favorite. Besides
Yeah.
Salt Lake, I love San Diego because of just how beautiful it is on the inside. I love the celestial room and
Mhm.
stuff in there. But anyway. Okay,
I
so
think it's the temple that we have that's closest to the Fortress of Solitude in its design. So, because it's the
True.
most crystalline looking.
It is true.
Turn up the nerdiness a little bit.
again,
Yeah,
I
it's
sit and laugh because I have no idea what y'all are talking about. So
well, the
The
decent
Fortress of
one-
Solitude is Superman's crystal home that he keeps up in like the
oh,
northern,
Superman.
up in the Arctic. Yep.
No worries, Celeste. I'll be like,
Superman, look at her.
here too.
Me and Kristen will just sit and nod. We'll be like, yeah,
Smile and nod.
Fortress
We're
of
gonna have to make
Crystal.
like a little like time and like footnotes and stuff like, okay, this reference here at this time was this, and this was Thor, and this was a Marvel Universe reference, and these were X-Men, and this was Star Wars, this was Star Trek specifically.
You could just put it on your, well, like we'll send over your podcast and you can put little blips on the screen so everyone can follow.
We'll just tag it all. Yep.
We'll have to explain for the audience, like when Ryan and I had like a little insider discussion about like, Commander Riker and
Please explain, because we're going to be all looking
We're
at
like,
you
what?
I don't know. Okay, so I've got a question. Again, I'm sorry to get off this temple subject, but so you said you've got converts on both sides, recent converts on both sides, grandparents and parents. So do you enjoy genealogy and doing all of the genealogy that goes back, or are you more like, I'll let someone else do that? And the reason I ask is because I love genealogy, so just curious.
Okay. No, that's a great question. So actually I have my dad's sister, my aunt, she and like most of my family's from the Southwest, and she went to BYU for a while. And so while she was living in the area, so she spent a lot of time doing genealogy and stuff. And so particularly on her side, on my dad's side, a lot of that work has been, or a lot of the genealogy work's been done on that side. But on my mom's side, there's a lot less. And actually a few years ago, both my parents got kind of the bug for a little while. And so there's actually, like, going back a few generations, things are pretty well organized, I think. It was probably, I don't know, middle of the winter, it was cold and I was bored and I was like, all right, well, let me go see what's on Family Search. Let me go check things out. And there was needed a little bit of cleanup. And so I was texting a cousin. I was like, hey, there's a duplicate of grandma. Can you like merge these two IDs together and like kind of clean this up a little bit? But yeah, so at least the first backlit kind of probably 3 or 4 generations at least are pretty well identified, I think. So it hasn't just like fallen on me. But yeah, no, it's been kind of an interest, and I've been able to be like, well, I can maybe wait until, a little bit later. Cause it's like, yeah, like, I think there are a few lines that actually go back like a good couple hundred years or something. So it's
Awesome.
So once you tie into those things, of course, you're home free because everyone else has done that work for,
Something,
eons.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I just thought maybe since you really like computers and stuff, that maybe that was something you were into.
There is definitely an intersection there for sure.
Have at it and catch that spirit of Elijah.
Yep.
So speaking of computers, so what do you do for a living? Does it have to do something with computers?
It certainly does. So I happen to be a computer programmer. So when I was like back in high school, I was kind of like curious about programming a little bit. But I've even like about as far back as I can remember, they've always fascinated me. And so I was just kind of always interested in them. And it seemed that if you wanted to learn more about how they work and what they do, learn how to program. And that's definitely been the case. The only way you get any deeper is you start getting into like chip engineering and design, and that gets more into like electrical engineering stuff. But more and more, some of the performance improvements and stuff that we see with like newer computers and newer phones, newer tablets and whatnot, are where they're taking and looking at like all of the typical processes and like, what's your phone, for example, spending most of its time doing where in software. And so how can we make the hardware run that software a little bit faster? And so, for example, one really example that's actually a little old now, playback of like any kind of a video stream. So say you're watching YouTube, you're watching Netflix, whatever, a stream like this. So the compression algorithms for video streams and stuff like that, there are kind of a few that have kind of become the most common ones. And so most chips anymore, at least CPU chips that are in your computers and your phones and your tablets and stuff, they have a special part of the chip that was created just for the purpose of decoding that particular video compression algorithm, just so it doesn't hit your battery quite as hard. Because if you can move some operation running off of the CPU normally into some very specially designed silicon inside the chip, then generally you have a performance improvement and power save on the battery. So, and that's just, and I probably just lost half the people here, but that's okay.
I did programming in college,
Okay.
and I failed my class.
Oh.
So, you know, I
But
really
you learned something, right?
I did, and it was hard, and I hated it. But I took it, but I passed it eventually. So.
Okay, good.
Good.
Yeah, so the discipline computer science is what the major was called, is kind of comes out of like most math departments, and the discipline and programming itself kind of descends, you know, academically from like older mathematicians and proofs and all kinds of different things, because you're pretty much just writing logic, which is also its own form of mathematics.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so that's kind of, so but it's definitely not for everyone, just like not everyone just, you know, digs on math.
I realized that early on.
One of the things I learned, one of the things I learned in high school, there was a guy that I knew that was taking a programming class with me, and the dude just like wanted to get it. He just was like, he was putting in all kinds of extra time, and which, you know, from a high schooler means that he's really interested, of course. And I just felt really bad for him because he was just killing himself trying to, you know, get through the assignments and understand, and the teacher was working with him a lot. And he just, I think he got a passing grade, but just barely.
Aw,
And
poor guy.
like
That's me.
and I just felt so bad for him.
Very
Yep, he got the E for effort.
Although programming is pretty cool, I appreciate programming, but it's just not for me too. It's not for everyone. Yeah,
That's true.
I can vouch for that. Yeah.
And there's some absolutely brilliant programmers out there.
Yeah.
Back into like gaming and stuff, one of the ones that I kind of idolized for a long time was John Carmack, who wrote the original like Wolfenstein and Doom and Quake, and so he was kind of the lead engineer behind a lot of that stuff. And the dude is just absolutely brilliant. Little socially awkward, but he's just super brilliant.
You don't have to
And
have
so
social skills when you're behind a computer, I'm telling you.
no,
You just got to
Nope,
know what
it's
you're
not.
doing.
I only know a little Python. I mean, I learned a little Python because I was a computer network engineer.
Mhm.
And so I just automated a lot of stuff. It's more for scripting and stuff, but you can do some cool
Yeah.
stuff. There's a lot you can do with Python. And I took a couple of classes to kind of brush up on it. And so, yeah.
Yeah, Python's huge. Python, it's everything. It's a great language. It's easier to pick up. Actually, if I were to teach classes, because of what the things that I remembered that people struggled with in high school, I feel like Python actually would have been a better language. So we learned on C and C++, which is just a really brutal, unforgiving language for high schoolers. If I were teaching at that level, I would absolutely use something like Python or Ruby, or if they used a lot of Macs or Apple products and stuff in the school, I would use Swift, which is another great language. But it's a very approachable language and it's very easy to read, and has a very fairly, it doesn't have a lot of like symbol stuff in the syntax.
Yes.
But it's still something that like you can use as a network engineer. It's something that you can use. I use it at work. And so there are all kinds of like servers and things that run Python in the background. It's one of the languages that right now, so if you're into like data engineering and like data study, like studying big data kinds of things, Python's another great language to know for that. So it's a language that can it's easy to pick up, and it can take you really far. And so it's a great one to jump off from Python onto other languages if you're interested in doing other kinds of things like web development. Then the transition from Python to JavaScript isn't going to be too bad. Or if you want to go the other direction, you want to head down towards like the C, C++, Rust, some of those more low-level languages, then
You know what
It's a
language I
great gateway language.
That's a lot
The
of
language
language.
I like, yeah, the language I find awesome is English. Like that. It's
Well,
like,
I'm
Python,
what is it?
proud
Like,
Python's a
I have
lot
when
no
my
like
idea what you're
brain
talking
is
English.
about.
fried with English.
English
Yep.
A plus,
Python
like
is-
that is my
Python's
language.
I know. It brought back nightmares when I hear C++. I'm like,
I don't even have
do
any
this. I can't.
of any of that. Like that is,
So-
yeah.
So you work for a company, Ryan, that does programming, right?
Yes, I do.
What do
I
you
actually
do?
work. So I do some. It's kind of hard to. Let's see. So it's one of the. Let me. I don't know. Flex a little bit. So I work for Activision, which is one of the like top 5. Last I looked for the year 2020 financially, they were like 5th place for top game companies worldwide. If you have heard of anything called Call of Duty, for example, that's Activision makes Call of Duty. So, and they own all of the studios that make Call of Duty. So the way that kind of works is each studio each year kind of has their release that's scheduled for one year, and then they go back to, like, I think they work on them for about 3 years, and then it'll be their turn again. And so Activision just kind of has a handful of studios, and just every year we've got a release, and they just kind of line them up. So I work on some of the kind of tool stuff that runs in the background. So if they're looking for performance metrics, if they're looking for dealing with hackers and cheaters and things like that in the game. And so there are some tools and things that then Activision uses internally to kind of work with some of that information. And so that information gets fed into databases, and that needs to get filtered and then processed and things. And so that's kind of what I'm working on right now. So yeah, so it's it's the kind of work that like you could be doing in almost any company, but it's kind of nice to work for a gaming company, because kind of the attitudes and stuff is people are like, hey, we're here because we love games,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
let's work, but
Yeah.
let's also have a good time. And
That's actually a pretty cool thing to say. You work for a gaming company, Activision, and you work on Call of Duty. We had a
Ben would probably want your autograph right about now.
yeah. It's cool
For
is that
some point, that is a pretty cool. I mean, it's always a growing industry, so
Mhm.
retire from that industry,
Yeah.
eventually.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I used to play a lot of church ball back in the day, and so we had some non-members who'd come play with us, and it turned out this one guy owned a small gaming company, and he was like a subcontractor. So they'd make a game, and then they would sell it to like EA or some of these other, and so he was responsible for one of the NBA games. And so as part of their development, he said, hey, I'm going to come down on I think it was like Wednesday nights or Thursday nights, we played down at the church building. And he brought a bunch of mics and he taped them around the baseboard of the gym that we played basketball in, so he could pick up the noises of the ball and the squeaks of the shoes, and they're running it up and down the court. And he just basically collected all the sound samples from that, and he used it in one of the NBA games. So I don't know which year, if it was like
Nice.
2000, maybe 2001, but he coded that game, and the sounds that are in the game came from a church basketball game.
So before I worked at Activision, a couple jobs back, I worked for a place called Backflip Studios, which was a mobile game company, and so for phones and tablets and stuff. And we had a game called Dwarven Den, which was kind of there are these randomly generated mines and things, and you had to spend your turns and your energy and stuff to kind of like mine or dig around the mine and find items to upgrade your axes and picks and things like that. But we had various different dwarves in the Dwarven Den. And so the company was just kind of like, hey, anybody who wants to come by, the audio guys, we had a little recording studio there in the office. And so they're like, hey, come by the studio and we'll read some lines. And so for a little while at the game, I don't even think you get the game anymore on the App Store. But for a little while, I had a couple lines or something that was recorded that was, being like, huzzah, or something like that. And so anyway, it was kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of fun to know, like, just to know the background of, like, and he had a couple of his coders that were playing with us, and it was just fun, playing basketball, and then you have some guy come down and he's like, yeah, we're gonna put all of our sounds from church basketball into the NBA game. So kind of cool.
Nice.
So
yeah.
you work for Activision. That's cool. And what is your computer of choice? Like, what do you like to use? I know
Oh, here we go.
I'm answering for him.
here we go. Debate time. Debate
Yep, the
time.
gloves are coming off.
Android
So
versus iPhone.
today I'm using a Mac, but also over here to my side, which you can't see, there's at least one little Linux box and a couple NAS devices, and my work computer behind me is a Windows, so I'm quite multi-platform.
But he prefers the Mac.
Yes, I do. So it's the Unix operating system that's got the best UI and the best support for, common software, particularly things like Photoshop, Lightroom, which I do for like photography processing and stuff like that. So it's, if I had to, that pretty much you have to choose between Mac or Windows, and given that choice, I'm absolutely going to choose the Mac. So
understandable.
Yeah, for artistic stuff.
Yeah.
Those
well,
hipsters.
also for programming, because you open up the terminal program and you've got a full Unix environment. So
It runs on FreeBSD, so can't beat that. The internet runs on FreeBSD, so
it does.
All right. So we know you love Mac, and we know that just in that small amount of information that you are an amazing, smart individual. So we like that. Right, Corey?
Yeah.
Of course.
So what else do we need to know about you? So you went on a mission to California. How did that go? Did you enjoy yourself? What's like a good or like difficult story you got from your mission that you can share with us?
Oh man. Yeah. So let's see. So many lessons I learned. It's kind of,
I didn't go on one, but I can imagine.
yeah. If you didn't come out a better person after your mission, then you weren't paying attention, I guess, or you weren't even trying.
Well, you're on vacation for 2 years or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, suburban California is hardly a vacation, I guess, but yeah. So I was in the San Bernardino mission, which is, I think at the time was one of the larger missions in California, just geographically.
Isn't that near Loma Linda? I used to live in Loma Linda for like a very short period of time. Is that San Bernardino? Maybe not.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I think that's not adjacent. So it was next to the Riverside mission, was kind of the one to the east. And for a few years, they split the San Bernardino mission into the San Bernardino and Redlands.
Oh yeah, okay. So
I was actually there when the Redlands mission opened.
Yeah.
Or when the Redlands temple opened. I was there for some of the open house and stuff. So now I've dated myself.
Yeah. Younger than us, so or at least me.
But yeah, so that was exciting that we had a temple opening in the. I mean, the temple wasn't in the mission borders, but it was everyone in our mission would be assigned to that temple. So that was kind of fun, where we got to kind of spice up the usual attracting materials with, and by the way, we've got a brand new temple opening. We've got an open house, and you're welcome to come, and kind of introduce people to the church that way. Because like we were talking about earlier with like the DC temple, it'd be really nice if they had an open house, because it kind of people, I mean, we're supposed to be a peculiar people, and I think it's, they're supposed to be kind of curious and interested in us, and some of them are, some people are. And so if we can provide them ways to kind of like, and this is what the inside of the temple looks like. It's just a very pretty building, and this is the baptistry, and just kind of go through and explain all this missionary tool, demystify it.
Yeah.
It's a good missionary tool. I know when I went to the open house in San Diego, because I was living in California, I was living in LA, and we went down there just for the open house. And I like to go to open houses because I love to see the looks on everybody's faces that aren't members of the church. And, sometimes you can tell which ones aren't, right? They're showing up in like their wife beaters and their jeans, and they're like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to dress nice, but this is beautiful. Right? And I just love looking at their like faces and, and then watching their reactions to like everything they see in the temple. So it's fun.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just like, we had an investigator he was, he's one of these like, and he'd been an investigator for a very long time, and his wife died some years back. And so he was the investigator that we brought with us to just, because we were allowed to, like, if you can have an investigator that wants to go see the temple, then you can get permission to go and ride with them, because it was outside of mission boundaries. So we needed permission to go do that. And so we went with them, back down to the Redlands Temple, and like he was saying things like, man, my wife would have loved this, and I feel like I'm so much closer to her here and stuff. And we're like, duh, and like all the things we've been telling you, and he just, I don't know, it just wasn't his time yet still. So yeah, we'll get him on the other side, I guess.
That's right.
What were you saying, Celeste?
I was just saying, once I went through, so my family's not active. There's a couple of family members that are, but for the most part, they're not. And I remember going through one of the open houses in Utah, and I don't remember which one it was, but they all kind of came along, and they all kind of bring like their boyfriends or friends or whatever. And we all kind of went through together. And it was a great experience to see their faces. Like Corey was saying, they're just like, wow, this is just like, there's something special about it in here. Right. So I was kind of at the tail end of the line, and it was like the scene where you can kind of do a loop through the celestial room and come back out. So my family, everyone's like ahead of me, and they were looping and coming around out as I was kind of going in. And one of the individuals that were with us was like, his eyes were huge, and he was like, I have never felt like that before. He's like, that felt so like, I don't know if he used the word weird, but something like that is so like overwhelming, that room. And he was like kind of not freaked out, but he was just so like, he didn't realize that it was the spirit like totally engulfing him. But it was a moment I looked over and I thought, yes, I loved that he had that experience, even though he didn't recognize what it was. And I was later able to say what it was. But that moment, that's why I think it's so important when you have those open houses, get people in there. Like, yeah, I mean, just pile them in, get them through. So let them
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, to have kind of like that association with like that feeling with a place,
right,
that's like specific in particular.
Exactly.
One of the things that so I think most people going through the MTC, they at least get to hear from one of the 12 at least once during that time. They just the way the schedules work out, there's just every 3 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever, there's at least one apostle. And so Elder Eyring was the one that spoke when I was there. And one of the points that he made was, and he's actually said this in like general conference at least a couple times, is that he's like, everyone has had a spiritual experience, whether they realize it or not. And sometimes most of the time they don't understand, but like, for example, like one example I think was someone who was like, maybe they were a basketball player, like they were a pro player or something. And like they got invited to, anyway, there was some kind of a situation where like he could have been with a certain woman, and it was maybe would have been a compromising situation for her, and the way he was living his life at the time, like it wouldn't matter to him or anything like that. But for some reason, he felt like he had some kind of an impression that was like, nope, not this time, or whatever, something. And this Elder Eyring shared this story. He's like, every person is having these kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
And most of them don't even realize what it is. They don't understand what's happening, but occasionally they just feel something that they can't explain, that's not their normal selves, that's like impressions or feelings or thoughts or something that comes, it's the spirit telling them something in that moment. And so he's like, everyone has these experiences outside of, I mean, we kind of feel like we've got like, the reserved status on like,
right,
it only happens to us, like we're the only ones. But like, no, but he's like, no, he's like, you guys need to realize that everyone out there is being prepared in little bits and pieces and stuff. And so, but anyway, so to tie that back to the temple, so that they can at least associate, rather than just having like, I had this weird feeling, this weird idea that I just wouldn't have normally, I did this thing that I normally wouldn't have done. I was nice to someone when I normally wouldn't have done anything at all. But then to tie that sort of a feeling to the celestial room in the temple in an open house, I feel like is way more powerful. So absolutely. Run people, get them there.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I was gonna get tickets because I've got people at work, there's a lot of people out here that have seen the temple and they want to go see it. And so I want to get tickets. I hope they do an open house, because last year I had like some stuff lined up and bring some non-members, and so but hopefully, I mean, I cross my fingers, hopefully they'll do the open house.
Yep.
At some point, I think they will, right? Like once we're on the other side of this scenario that we're in right now, hopefully we get there, they'll do an open house. It'll just probably be delayed. They'll probably have to like kind of close it down to reopen it or whatever, but I'm sure they'll do something.
What's going to be crazy is when they do the open house, when they reopen the Salt Lake City temple, they're going to have to plan like
Yeah.
months of open house time for just because that people are going to come from around the world, I think, to finally see that temple open, like to go around the inside and see what it's like inside and stuff. It's going to be huge.
Not even non-members. I mean, I want to go. I want to see what they do.
Oh yeah.
I went to my nephew's wedding inside that temple, so it was kind of interesting to see it like from the inside. So
yeah, I've never been. I've not seen the inside of Salt Lake City Temple, so I'll probably be standing in that line too.
You know, right before my daughter went on her mission, we took her there for a session because she wanted to experience a live session, and it's the Salt Lake Temple, so we're doing it, right? And I'm so excited we did, because now they're making it live, and now they're renovating the inside, and so it's not going to have that same classic. I mean, they'll keep a lot of it, but it won't be exactly the same. So
yeah, it'll be a little different.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, that was something cool that so while I was a missionary, and so the Los Angeles temple was the temple that we went to for temple trips. And that one was one of the ones that has transitioned from live sessions to non-live.
Okay.
And so the temple was originally designed where you would go room to room to room. And then the very beginning of my mission, the first temple trip, we stayed just in one room because that's just how the sessions were being run, but that's not how the building was originally built. Right. And so we stayed in one room. Well, then they changed it. That's how I actually got to go to the San Diego temple, was for one of our trips. They were doing some work on the LA temple to kind of retrofit it back to a video room to room experience.
Oh, very cool.
And so you would go so you could still see all the different rooms and stuff as the temple was built, and meant to kind of be used, but it was still, just normal video sessions. And so that was really, really cool. But anyway, there was one of the trips where we got to go down to the San Diego temple. And what's funny is that from San Bernardino to the LA temple, it took, like a couple hours or something like that to get there. It took us the same amount of time to drive down to San Diego as it did to just drive through LA traffic.
Oh my God.
It's ridiculous.
That was COVID, so you double the amount of rush hour traffic. I've experienced that pre-COVID, and I was crying in the car. I'm like, I might as well stop by and have dinner in the car. Yeah. But okay, here's my question though. Okay, so the first time I had experience with the temple session, without disclosing a lot of details, it was a live session at the Salt Lake City Temple, and I was like, what is happening here?
Like all the actors.
I'm like, what is God? Did I sign up for the right?
You're like, wait a minute. Depends on which actor you get. Some of them are like, okay, I totally get it. Another ones you're like, what? I can't even understand.
Exactly. I think I got the one where like, what? Who is he? Oh, okay, maybe I know why. So anyway, that was just my experience. And then of course they tell you have to go often to
right.
And I've done other live sessions, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's making more sense. But my first experience, I didn't know what to expect, so I was like,
I went through a live one for my first session too. It's like,
so when I watched the video, it made more sense that I came back and like, okay, I'm gonna watch the live now because I got the comparison.
I know, you go to the video and you're like, I get what's going on.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what they were saying. Okay, because
yeah. It's just, anyway.
Yeah, LA's an older temple too, and it's got all the different rooms, and you go from room to room, especially when it's for your first time. They put you through the different rooms.
Yeah.
And they have a beautiful garden room, and they've got a beautiful and you move through and then you wind up in the celestial room, and it's awesome. It's a pretty good experience to go to the different rooms. So
it's a bit stressful for me because I know I have a guide. But I was like, please take me to the right room. I'm gonna get lost.
I don't want to get lost.
I'm pretty sure I'm in a safe place, but you never know.
Never be like, where'd Christina go? Where's she at? Find her
she's wandering down the hallway.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Interactive.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. We probably should move on from this. Let's see. How about I'm interested, Ryan. So
Yes,
you have never been married, is that
that is
correct?
correct.
Okay. And so we don't want to date you, but tell us about that. Like I know you said you've been in the single scene for 20 years. Want to give us a little rundown of what you've
Sure.
some good fun dates or some really horrific dates, like whatever you
Yeah, so let's see. So I got back from the mission, and actually my mission president gave, I guess there are two kinds of mission presidents, but in lots of different ways. So mine did not say, you better get home and get married and start having babies. He was just like, go home, date, don't feel like you're in a rush to get married. So he was, yeah, smart guy, super smart. I feel like they're also like, either people like really, really loved their mission president or did not. And I absolutely loved mine. So that was a good relationship there. Anyway, so he sent us home. He's like, don't rush into anything. And I was like, okay. And so he kind of like wasn't rushing into anything. And so I just kind of had this like super lackadaisical attitude about like getting married. I mean, I obviously wanted to get married and stuff, but I didn't have this like pressure, like my mission president said that I need to get married and I need to hurry up and get this over with. And because before I turn 25 and I become a nuisance to society, like Brigham Young said like 200 years ago.
Yeah.
So anyway, so then let's see, about like a couple years after I got back, then they split the singles, the YSA ward. So we used to have one big YSA ward in the Denver area, which is mostly where I grew up. And so they split that big YSA ward into all the different stakes. So every stake had their own, because it was just becoming, my understanding was that it was just too complicated managing recommends and stuff between all these different like stake boundaries and stuff. And so like the bishop for the singles ward had to like coordinate with all these, it's not Utah, but like with these different stakes and stuff around the city. And it was just trying to match up schedules, and communication and stuff was just becoming too much of a problem. So they're like, we're going to split these all out into smaller wards. And so I started, so that was kind of about the time that I started becoming active or like involved with the YSA ward. And so I did that for a while, and like, had a couple callings, and like, let's see. So like one time I was the teacher for the teachers class, like the class that teaches teachers, that goes through the church's manual about like how to be a better teacher and how to prepare your lessons and how to like try and listen to the Spirit. And like, if the conversation goes a certain way, then like maybe just kind of flow with that. And so just kind of some of that stuff. So I did that. I was like a financial clerk and an FHE dad for a little while. And so you'd have to kind of like prepare like brief lessons, but then we also had kind of the committee where we try and come up with activities and games and stuff to play and different things. I made a friend she's a super extrovert. I'm quite introverted, but she's very extroverted. And so we kind of became friends, and we're still friends. And she got married in the singles ward. I didn't. But anyway, so like, but we got along. What's that?
Was he the FHE mom at that time? Don't you have like a mom and dad? I know I had that when I was.
Yeah, it's cute, I guess. They assigned like, so let's get one of the guys and one of the girls to kind of be paired leadership or whatever, to try and kind of like run things. Because you're in your 20s, you're adults, but we're still kind of young adults. And so even though we're not yet capital Y young adults. So anyway, so we worked together and planned some things. One of the best activities we did was just kind of a Christmas dinner thing. And so we kind of like, brought in like some nice speakers and like set up, like, I think it was the primary room or one of the rooms in the building, and did as best as we could, like kind of like a nice dining, kind of like fake candles on the tables, and like, decorated it up and had like Christmas music playing in the background, and turned the lights down and like hung like strings of lights and stuff around. And so it was kind of a nightlife dining experience and stuff, as far as like just to have kind of a more formal Christmas dinner. And then we had kind of a brief devotional from the bishopric afterwards. But so anyway, so I had fun doing activities and stuff in the YSA. And probably a couple opportunities that I maybe should have been a little bit more aggressive on with dating and stuff, and maybe I wouldn't be here. Who knows where I'd be now?
Right.
But yeah, and then got to like, you know, my late 20s, and like got to the point where it's like, nope, it's time to leave. Because, you know, the new ones coming in are like 17, 18, and it's like they don't want anything to do with me. I'm 30, you know, creeping up on 31. They don't, not interested. So yeah, so then kind of started getting involved with the mid singles and stuff in the Denver area, and so that's been a few years now. And where I used to be the baby in there, now I'm kind of getting into like the midlife of the mid singles. So I'm like
You're getting to be the middle,
mid single. Yep.
child.
Yep. So
So you graduated. So you graduated out of the YSA.
Yes, I did.
To mid-singles.
With honors. I didn't get engaged once. Not like those slackers that dropped out and dropped out and got married.
You did not
What?
get engaged once, or you did get engaged?
Nope.
Not
No,
even
not
once.
getting, didn't even get it. See, that's why I say with honors. I graduated.
Did
with
you have a
honors.
lot of suitors though? Did you have a lot of suitors?
I don't think so. At least if I did, I didn't know about them.
But okay, here's my
Maybe a
question.
couple.
Drew. Here's my question. You're an FHE dad. Don't you guys get a list of people and then you get to check them out first or something like that? Like a
Like
roster?
Not in this word. It was
No? Oh,
we were
okay.
not that like highly organized, I guess, because you know we only had an elders quorum and a relief society. So it was, and even those weren't full. So yeah, we didn't have to have that kind of like sophistication of organization to kind of just manage people and keep track of them. It was pretty easy. Like it was the same 20 people that showed up to FHE every week for the most part. I mean, there was usually the influx and outflux of people, coming home from school or leaving for school, because we were just in the suburbs. And so like people, they'd come home for the summer. We'd have a few people from Utah coming out to do like pest control or try and sell solar roofs or something, or whatever it is that they were selling. And then they were gone at the end of the summertime. So, we had the usual kind of seasonal, visitors and stuff, but other than that, it was pretty much kind of like the same people every week.
Okay,
But what is your type though? Like, do you have a type? Like a girl? No?
I don't know. Like, so I'm my tendency, as particularly being a bit of an introvert, my tendency is to kind of just like watch from afar and be like, okay, so who's like what, and who do I, want to associate with and stuff. And just because I'm kind of like, and so I'll kind of like stay back. And at that point, I think I probably like, oh, I'm standoffish. And so the girls are like, he's not interested in me or anything like that. And it's like, no, I'm observing before I make my first move. So
set up a plan, right?
yeah, gotta set up my plan.
So you like to hang out on the wall like the cool kid.
He's like,
the girls walk by and they're like, man, Ryan is so cute, but he just won't talk to me.
But
Okay,
little
but-
do they know, he's like taking mental notes.
Right.
You're like, she's cool, she's nuts, she's all right, she's just,
No, so I think, okay, so the first thing that you see when you interact with people, of course, the physical aspect of it. So do you like blondes versus brunette? If I was a guy, I'd be more into brunette. I like brown hair girl. I mean,
I mean, you can be into brunettes too as a
I
woman.
know.
That's allowed.
So kind of like that, because I feel that people, I mean, there's that first layer of attraction. I'm like, ooh, curly brunette or blonde or blue eyes, or not, I don't want to put you in a box, but I feel like everyone has a certain type. Do you like short girls? Do you like tall girls? Do you like,
Yeah, so quick answer, I'll say short brunettes. And so I'll commit to something there. On the other hand, I've decided that it's probably my best interest to not be too beholden to that general preference, because I don't know who Heavenly Father has plans for me, where he's like, okay, you need to meet this one over here. She might have blonde hair. You're going to have to, adjust to that. anyway, but if that's the case, then, I want to be open to that. And so that's one of the lessons I've learned as getting older, is to just be like, try and be a little bit more open than like my initial, like, I only date people who are under 6 or 5'6", and like, they only have like brown or black hair, like,
Yeah, I saw a funny episode. I'm a big fan of The Big Bang Theory. I don't know if you like that show.
Oh, that's great. Yep.
So
See,
Howard. So go ahead.
I would
So
wanna
Howard
date
was trying
Bernadette.
to find his type, and he kept picking out these superheroes. Like he'd be like, he would say like, "Oh, I want somebody like Angelina Jolie," or
right.
so.
See, from the
you were-
big,
I totally
yeah.
agree. I totally agree with being more open because okay, my ex-husband was 6'3", and the family that I got married into, I was the shortest. So I got used to being around tall people, and I associated, the height as a level of security. And my ex-husband was also partial Samoan, and so they are tall and,
big, yeah,
big people, but they're more on
strong.
the leaner side. And so when I got divorced, I and started dating, I would only date people that are like at the most 5'10". And then I went to and so I was like, okay, it's because I'm used to that. And then a friend of mine told me that I have to change that. And she was she's married to her husband who's the same height as her. That height shouldn't be a factor to, as far as like choosing her. It's the vibe. And I was like, at first I wasn't too sold about it because I'm like, well, I associate height with security. And then over time, I learned that if I open the range of height, then I have more options. And literally, I lowered my standard to like, maybe I'll do 5'6". I don't know.
So at 5'6" for men, like that's you're getting below average at that point. So
Yeah.
you've hit a big, nice big target.
Right.
See, I'm
and
a nice perfect
5'3",
average
and I'm
5'8".
5'3", so that person is still taller than me. But then
yes.
I had an experience where I went out on a date and this guy is like, I'm 5'6". And then I met him and I was like, at the back of my mind, I'm like, dude, you're not 5'6". I can see the top of your head. I'm taller than you. I was like,
He gave
"What's
himself a
up,
few
dude?"
inches.
Right. And so I felt like I did my part. I did my best. I kind of played with the preferences of like what
Yep.
height really means to me. And then over time that changed and I'm more open. And you're right. You're not in the height box anymore. You're not in the brunette or blonde box anymore because then you're more open to that connection to everyone. I mean, as long as the vibe is there.
Did that change your initial attraction to someone, or do you initially still attract to someone that might fit your initial mold, but you've realized, okay, I need to go outside that? Or did it really just to change your like initial attraction to people?
It did. I went out on a date with a guy who's 6'5". And I'm like 5'3", 6'5", and we were like walking, side by side. And at that point, I realized I'm like, I think I'm okay with not a 6'5" person. That's pretty much.
You're like, your waist is
Right.
You're like,
I
hey,
thought that's
your belt
okay.
buckle's like kind of blinding me. The sun's hitting it, and it's like,
Right.
Can you take that off, please?
but sure. Tall guys, is still an in thing. But I have to be more mature. I mean, I was telling my friend, I just have to be shallow, because that's my type. But then again, when I opened up the age and the height, that completely changed for me in the last year and a half, that I'm like getting to know people that's really outside of my type. So that was a cool experience, I think.
Yeah, there's another podcast from another friend of mine who used to be in Colorado and then she moved to Utah. It's called Barbie. Barbie Does Dating. And it's been a little while because of COVID and stuff. She hasn't done episodes, but she's had a number of like dating coaches and stuff on. And so on the subject of that, like, women, they feel like they need to have someone that's, 6'2" or at a minimum. And it's like the problem with that is that just like on the distribution of humans on the planet, you've narrowed yourself down to like less than 5% of everyone.
Yeah.
And really what you're seeking is like what, and you had touched on it, Christina, is that it's kind of a security kind of a thing. And so we're looking for things that kind of exemplify masculinity or femininity. And there are other ways to, for those things to kind of evidence themselves, and ways that we can kind of like embrace that. And so she gave an example of like an apartment neighbor or something like that was helping them with, I don't know, something in the kitchen, like some plumbing, like they had a leaky pipe. I don't know, remember what it was, but they'd already had kind of like a friendly relationship, you know, the girls in this apartment with her and this neighbor. And the guy, I guess, is just like super gay, like just totally gay. But apparently he is one heck of a dancer. And so like he was just like, they were just kind of goofing around and just kind of chatting after he helped them out with whatever he was helping them out with. And like, just did like this quick kind of like a dance move or something with her, and just like she was swooning for like the next hour or something, just, and had like, there's no attraction, but it like just kind of like expressing that same kind of like the difference, like, you know, femininity, masculinity, strength, security, like those kinds of things that can come in different forms. And so yeah, so but anyway, and I guess that's one of the things that dating coaches are frequently trying to get people to look past, is like, look, maybe you don't need someone who's, you know, over 6 foot at a minimum, because there are a lot of guys out there that are great. They're still taller than you by several inches, but they're at least like available, and there's like some of them at least.
Right.
And maybe even a lot of them.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
there's
not
a
all
lot
of them have full heads of hair either.
And not
There's
all
a
of us have like, you know,
different-
tiny little bodies.
Yeah, for
women.
sure. Oh my gosh. So with that being said, how's dating for you now?
So right now, dating, so I'm actually seeing a couple of people in the chat mention there's a new unit that's opened up in Fort Collins. That's actually on the, I've more recently, so right now I'm staying down in Colorado Springs,
Okay.
which puts me probably close to like 2 hours from that unit. So just logistically, it's probably not going to happen. And at least right now, from what I'm seeing, I mean, COVID's just completely just thrown a wrench into a lot of these kinds of same things. And so like right now, I'm kind of keeping an active profile on Mutual, but there's not a lot going on. But also I don't feel like right now I'm in a season of life where that is necessarily what my focus needs to be. And so like right now I'm staying with family and I'm kind of supporting them and stuff. But I suspect that in the coming months, hopefully soonish, sometime, that season's going to shift. So back, just to touch back on my work. So right now I'm working remotely, but that could change. And so it could either change to permanently, I need to move and relocate to the Los Angeles area, which would be a huge move. Or it could change to, and this is what I'm really, really hoping for, is that they'll let me stay work from home permanently, at which point then kind of the world's my oyster. And I would probably, right now, the inclination is to maybe move to Utah for a little bit and dip my foot in the largest, densest dating pool on the planet.
Yep.
And see what happens. Just try and put myself in harm's way, so to speak, and see where that goes.
I mean,
But at this point, I don't know.
What's the worst thing that could happen when you
What's
move?
the worst thing that can happen? I can end up getting married, and it just, you know, live happily ever after.
That's the worst. Oh no.
What is the best thing that could happen?
Yeah, there we go.
I think he's
No, the
been
worst
around
thing that could
divorce
happen-
people too long.
Yeah, no, the worst thing, the actual worst, rather not being sarcastic, but the actual worst thing would be to, you know, get there and be like, I'm at the most, there are more members of the church, more just like densely packed together than they are anywhere else on the planet, and still just be like, well, but I still can't find anyone.
Can't find anybody.
And it's like, well, I feel at that point you didn't try, or you were focused on other things, or need to reprioritize or something. Not to be
Widen
offensive
the
and
pool.
insulting to, yeah, you guys widen the pool.
Right.
But also and so I would really rather not have to move to Los Angeles, especially with the world and the state that it's in right now.
Right.
That's true.
But
I
if
would
I
not
had
like
to,
that
there's
either.
a huge LDS population in the LA City area. There's actually a mid-singles unit that would be within an hour's drive of where I would be working. So it probably wouldn't be the worst, and I'd probably still have access. There'd probably a lot of people there, but it just wouldn't be it would just be different, a different flavor of kind of a new scene. But at this point in life, I don't know where my future is. And so at this point, it's like, it's hard to like try and get real serious with anyone when it's like, oh, and by the way, in 6-8 months, I could have to move to Los Angeles. Are you coming with me? And you know, if she's got kids, then there might be, you know, kind of court reasons why she can't stay, or it's incredibly complicated and difficult to leave. So yeah, so at this point, I'm kind of like, pump the brakes a little bit, like just focus on other projects and things,
See where you
and just
end
kind of let
Yeah.
see where I end up first.
So LA's a good market. I mean, you got to go out. You've got to go to like the Huntington Beach mid singles conference. Apparently, that's like one of the biggest, nicest,
heard of that.
funnest. And you know, they have like a whole weekend of like seminars, and they've got a big sacrament meeting. Like 900 people go like to the sacrament meeting. And then like Monday,
Good
everybody
grief.
goes to Disneyland, like just down the road. They go down to Disneyland and have a great day.
Not bad.
So it's a good experience.
Well, I like what you said, Ryan, that, you know, pretty much the world is your oyster, whether you're working remotely or not. I just think that, you know, with dating, it's 50% effort and then 50% faith and fate. So there's a little bit of letting go, but at the same time, you have to do your part. Whether that's wiping left and right or reframing, reframing your type, you know, I think we have to put our, you know, best foot forward whenever we go on dates, or at least try, you know, but of course, safety, at least especially for women, safety is a priority. But I really think about you know, the effort, because I feel like there are times when I'm praying, I would say, Heavenly Father, I swipe right on somebody, that's an effort, and I chatted with that person. Can you put a point? I want to put an effort, you know. Little tiny steps. And sometimes you'll be surprised what that first high, or you know, like again, little effort, baby steps. It's not unnoticed.
So
Yeah.
Ryan,
So for me, yeah.
no, go ahead. I was going to ask you.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and answer.
All right, sure. So I find that, at least for me personally, at least, especially because I'm kind of in a season where it's like, my life might be changing significantly in the near future. I'm not super serious. I'm not looking super seriously. I mean, obviously, the right woman came along, get super serious. But it's probably unlikely. Anyway, just kind of the way I've observed about myself is that I find that online dating, because I've dabbled in online dating since pretty much coming back from my mission. I remember like one of the first things, like I signed up for LDS Planet, like, you know, way back in the day, before we had smartphones and apps and all this kind of stuff. And so it was just a website, and you put up a few pictures and you try and chat with people and stuff. And the internet and kind of the world scene was just different then. And so it was kind of, I mean, back then, like internet dating was still a little bit taboo, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And now it's super commonplace. And so I feel like people, like there was even like the stigma around there was just, oh, you had to meet someone online. Like,
Right.
why can't you just, you know, meet someone pumping gas like a normal person? But like, so, but anyway, like the number of people, and I think kind of like the spread of the kinds of people that were willing to be online and meet people online and stuff was a little bit wider then, because I think we didn't have quite so much. Back then, a catfish was a thing you picked up on a fishing line when you were out camping. Like, so some of those like stereotypes and predatory behavior and stuff from not who you're looking for didn't really exist. I mean, there were fake profiles. And there were scammers occasionally, but you'd kind of learn to just like, this profile looks a little fishy. Like their photos are just badly photoshopped, and they're all like these two photos are the same exact photo. They've just changed the background a little bit and cropped it differently. Like this is sketchy for sure. And yeah, so kind of just the world of dating and online dating stuff has just kind of shifted. Anyway, one of the things I've kind of observed about myself is that I really kind of need to get to know someone as a friend first, and kind of like really, really, really build the friend foundation. And so obviously Heavenly Father knows that about me. And maybe if he has some other kind of a plan that there'll be an exception to that. But generally, and like I kind of said, like just kind of like looking, from a distance or whatever, like if I can get to know someone, maybe not necessarily in a workplace setting, but like, you're to reference back to the young single adult, like, FHE moms and dads kind of a thing. Like you're not forced into a relationship, but you're kind of in a situation where you're working together, you're spending time together, getting to know each other casually and just sort of more naturally. I find my suspicion is that's how it'll finally work out, is that there will finally be a situation where he'll be like, all right, I'm putting you here, and then she's going to be over here, and you guys are going to you're going to have some kind of a reason to be spending a lot of time together, and you'll just kind of bond and get to know each other that way. And so I suspect that, considering the years that I've been online dating and I've had just not a lot of success with online dating, I'm trying to kind of like let go of that. And at this point, it's just like keeping an account on Mutual is just something to kind of keep that aspect in my life occupied, where it's like, okay, I've got a profile, my foot is in the water, but at least I've got something going on, but it kind of just keeps that satiated, at least until something happens. So anyway, sorry, your question, Celeste.
Oh, my question. I'm
Unless
sure
you
it'll
had
come back
something
to me,
else
but I've got a new one.
Okay, new
So
question.
you're saying, so you use Mutual and stuff. Do you get on a lot of the Facebook groups, the single Facebook groups, and interact that way?
A little bit. So there was, I find a lot of the interaction, at least these days in most of the groups that I've seen, it's super superficial level interaction. And it's hard to, first of all, some of the groups are just so numerous, it's hard to kind of like feel like you're getting noticed.
Right.
And I've never been one, like there was a time where I thought that I would try and be like one of those guys that would crowd around the new pretty girl or whatever and be like, hey, like try and notice me or something. And then I was like, nope, I'm not that noticeable. I just blend in a little too well, too much of a social chameleon or something. I don't know. And so I've just really been like, nope, that's a miserable experience. I don't enjoy doing that. I'm going to stop doing that. And so typically when the online Facebook version of that happens, I'll tend, like at most will be like, yeah, okay, someone put some effort into that post or that photo, or like they, went and got some nice lighting or something and stood by a window and for the photo, then I'll be like, okay, I'll give you a like, but I'm not going to be like, wow, you're really beautiful today. I bet you have a great testimony. Like, I'm not going to try and do that because it's just like, a drop in the bucket. Like it's just it's never going to get noticed. And so I've just
post. Because I think
what?
that's what you would. Do you ever post yourself? Like come up with
Not
your own selfie
usually.
and post it? Like maybe you're like doing something, you take a selfie and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. What are y'all doing? Because that's actually how you're going to get noticed versus more
Sure.
replying and liking.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that
have
makes
to
sense.
comment
So-
on somebody's posts. Like, I mean, it's interesting, but you kind of have to get in the psychology of like Facebook, and you got to kind of see like, especially like the selfie Sundays. Like if
Yeah.
and I'm just going to speak in terms of like, what if a woman's going to get dressed up and put some makeup on and then do a selfie Sunday, then you know what, she's putting herself out there. And
Yep, absolutely.
for guys not to comment, and don't be creepy comment, don't be like, oh man, you're smoking hot, like don't do that.
Yeah.
Make a nice comment and say, wow, that's a great photo, or great, very nice photo, you're very photogenic. Like, be genuine, but don't be like, oh man, you're smoking hot, what's your number?
Yeah. No, and I will do some of that. I will do a little bit of like, good lighting, nice choice of, whatever, like, dress looks good, like good dress choice, or I mean something like that, and just try and be like, throw something nice out there.
Yeah.
But it feels just kind of like, I don't know, like it's just not, never goes
Well, at
anywhere.
least your
It
next
feels like
step
it
could
just falls
be,
flat.
no, I think your next, if they respond back,
Right.
with like a like or a heart, or they even type back and say, oh, thank you for the nice compliment.
Yeah, no, if they wrote a
Then
comment, that's gold.
you gotta keep it going, right?
Yep.
So, okay. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, a friend of mine was I asked him and I was like, what's the best pickup line you've ever, um, told anybody? And he was like, you know what, to be honest, it was a simple hi and hello. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try that, whether it's in an online space or I haven't tried it in the grocery store. I don't know how to approach somebody like that. But I figured, nothing too complicated that would, steer that person away. So I think in Facebook you can just say, "Hi Celeste" or "Hi Corey," and see where it goes. If they don't reply, then no message is a message. And if
Yep.
they do, they do, then carry on with the conversation and see where it goes. And I think it's not being attached to an outcome is what makes it fun, because then it's just like, woo, free falling, I'm falling in love. Maybe, but it's a start. It's a start, and I think everyone should at least try that once.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. I was going to say, just with the hi and the hello, like add maybe like a one-liner like, hey, I see you're from Texas. What do you like about living there? Just something where it's like, okay, there's something I noticed about you, and then something that gives them a reason to reply back. Because personally, if it's just like hi, like on a message or hi Celeste, I just don't ever even open them. That sounds so bad,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. So anyway, what were you saying?
Well, and sorry, I'm going to try and remember that.
I'll send it to you in the chat. Just kidding.
Yeah, well, just real quick to what you were saying, just kind of the numbers and stuff. The reality of just online dating is that women get just swarm, just like tidal wave of message requests, flirts, likes, pokes, whatever the venue is, whatever the terminology of that thing is. It's like orders of magnitude different between, like, guys generally their inboxes are starved, and so guys with like online dating stuff are like, please someone just notice me, and I'm trying to get at least someone's attention, whereas the women are like, I have too many things, too many messages in my inbox to try and filter through. How do I figure out which one of these guys are going to be jerks, creepers, which ones are actually nice guys, which ones are cute, this one doesn't even have photos. And so just kind of, it's this like part-time job for the women. And so there's this kind of like these two just incredibly opposite experiences. Back to the Facebook stuff, I've done a lot of those in the past. I've like participated with Selfie Sundays and made a couple friends and stuff on Facebook and things in the past with like some conversations. And so I just want to like be clear that like I do know how to interact socially. But to kind of tie back in, it's like also with the kind of like, my life might change significantly in the next few months. It's been a little bit easier just be like, you know what? I'm just gonna have a little light participation in the group. Maybe I'll like a few things, occasionally make a comment or two, but just kind of keep it light and easy, at least until, something happens. And so.
Yeah, which makes sense. And before we move into the topic real quick, I've got 2 questions and then we'll move on to the topic that we have.
Okay.
So real quick, you mentioned if you were seeing someone and they had kids, that might be a struggle. So you're okay with dating someone with children. Secondly, are you interested or would you be willing to even attempt like a long distance relationship?
So the kids one, I would have to, it's a little difficult because it's like, I feel like if I'm getting myself ready for the day, then like that's an accomplishment, let alone like 3 or 4 children.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are just tons of single parents that's just, yeah, like getting them all dressed was an accomplishment. And so I imagine that it's not that. And there's other like complicated kind of questions like, well, I might have different ideas about like how to parent, discipline, or like teach, or, you know, different aspects of raising. And they've had not just ideas, but they have been exercising opinions and evolving those like thoughts and opinions. And they're like, yeah, but I tried that once and it didn't work very well. Or I can only do that with this kid. I cannot with that. Or whatever. And there's just this whole other gamut of, you know, there's a lot more going on there. And so I feel like that same kind of like, we would need, like, I would need to, it's like anything that would be challenging in life. Like, as long as I knew that she and I were solid, then it'd be like, we could do anything together, then that would be fine. And so if that includes bringing me in and learning how to be a second parent or a third parent or whatever the situation is, then that's fine. And I did go on a couple of dates with someone who had kids, and one of the things that she said is that she's like, most important thing is between you and her, and if you guys can make it work, then you can figure out the kids. And the reality is that eventually the kids won't be in the picture anymore, and it'll still be just the two of you. Yep. And so that's the most important number one thing. So make sure that works.
Yep.
And I've got a couple of friends that actually that he had the kids. And he actually kind of like held off on, he kind of like insulated the kids from her, that they're married now and they're a great family. Anyway, but like early on, he kind of like insulated her from the kids, not because he was trying to protect them from getting attached or anything. He was actually trying to protect her from getting attached, because he wanted the relationship between him and her, and not have her fall in love with his kids, because they were pretty sweet kids.
Right.
And so he's like, I don't want you falling in love with my kids and then deciding that you want to get married with me when like our relationship may not be that great, but you're just kind of in love with my kids, and that's what you're here for. Right. And so, I mean, so there's all kinds of situations, and it can go like a million different ways, and everyone's different. And sorry, what was the second question? That was
long distance relationship.
Long distance relationships.
Willing to even attempt. They're not the easiest.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of work. Again, I think that's one of those, like, if I ran into the right woman, it was just like, and we were both like, you, and we were just, it's like, yeah, this is a good thing. We need to keep this thing going. But it's like, but I have to fly back to Virginia because that's where I work most of the time, or, you know, I'm 6 months on, 6 months, like whatever, then it'd be like, no, this is worth keeping going. And so I would say that I'm open to that, but it's not something that I'm just going to be like, I don't care if you live in Florida or whatever. Like, yeah,
that's tough. It's tough. It's long distance is tough for me because I'm a very physical kind of touchy guy. Like, I like to hold hands. I like to snuggle. I like to like cuddle on the couch, watch a movie, get under the blanket, you know, eat some popcorn and all that kind of stuff, you know. And
build a fort.
So,
build a fort.
Build a fort.
Build a fort.
Yes. Why
not? That's from the Big Bang Theory. Got to build a fort. Yeah. So, but it's so. I mean, I've tried the long distance thing. It's tough. It really is tough because I think that for me building a relationship, and I don't know about you, but I think it's important. For me, it's important to have that physical contact. You know, that's just me. I like that contact. I like, you know, being able to call at a moment's notice and like, hey, come over, or let's go grab something to eat, or, you know, it's really hard when you're like, I haven't seen you in 2 months. You know, it's like, especially during COVID when it's hard to travel, stuff like that. So it's been tough.
Yeah, no, there's a friend that I made on one of the Facebook groups, and I actually just started kind of making friends with her about the same time that she was dating a different guy that was also on the group. And so I kind of like missed that one a little bit, just barely, but
that's a bummer.
That's all right. They've got a great story. They happen to like serve in the same mission, like about the same time, but they like, I mean, they weren't like dating back then, but it was kind of like they knew each other a little bit back then, and then they both had their own lives, and families and stuff, and then like kind of like reconnected later on after both got divorced and stuff. And so they're great. But anyway, they actually have, I think that's still a long distance marriage at this point.
Yeah,
And so
that's
like they,
kind of becoming the thing, like these long
Yeah.
distance marriages until you can get the families and the kids and everything else in order. Yeah.
Yep,
I
yeah,
had a
she's on
woman-
the
I had a
West
woman
Coast
tell
and
me
he's in the
that.
Midwest. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that come popping up all over the place.
I had a woman offer that to me when I was living in Mexico, and I was getting my orders to go to Virginia from Mexico, and we were dating, and I was like, well, it was before I was going to Virginia, but it was right about the time, so maybe about 6 or 8 months before I went to Virginia. But anyway, we had like a 1-year relationship off and on, and she's like, would you ever consider marriage, long distance? And I was like, no way. I mean, it's already hard like to be long distance, period. And then you have like somebody throwing in like, hey, well, we can live in 2 different states and see each other once a month or so, or twice a month. I don't know. If I was married, man, I'd be wanting to have sex every night. It's been a while, right? So
I think for me, long distance, I've never been in a long distance relationship, but it's something that I would explore with the person that I really connect with.
Right.
Because again, it's opening up that opportunity for you to venture out and see what works and what not. However, I have some friends who, these are like different countries kind of long distance relationship, and it worked, and it was beautiful when it worked. And I think there's really the experience of longingness and missing each other. When you see each other, that you're just excited to be with each other. And I think that's the romantic in me that is like, it's gonna work out, as long as we're connected and we vibe. But I can see where like Corey's point of view as well, where if you know your love language and that's very important to you, how do you honor that? And I just think that that's the part of the 50% that if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Right.
Things will just work out. And I'm not the type of I used to be where I overthink a lot of things. Oh my gosh, 6 months down the road or a year from now, I want to be married. So it hasn't worked for me. And so I learned how to scale back, reframe, and like enjoy being in the moment, because today is what's gonna lead you to tomorrow. Who knows what tomorrow is gonna bring, as long as you do your part.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting because within the church, we have an eternal perspective, right? So even if,
Mhm.
let's say you've got this kind of long distance marriage thing, kind of doing what you can do to make this work, or long distance relationship or whatever, like in the grand scheme of eternity, you're only like apart for like a blip, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be like, oh, this is just, I would, this works. Of course, you'd prefer to be with each other at all times, but if it's like you were saying, Ryan, you like, if it's that moment and you're like, this works, like what can we do to make us work in an
Mhm.
internal perspective, knowing, hey, we can get through this rocky moment in time if we have eternity together. So that's kind of a fun thing with our faith, that we have at least an eternal view versus just like the here and now. So
Yeah.
okay, now with that
Well-
being, go ahead. Nope, go ahead.
Yep. I was just gonna say that, like you were talking about, like, trying to focus on, like, well, in a year I want to be married, and so it's like, well, and so like one thing that I find is, and this has also been kind of reinforced by like kind of the hear him message and stuff from, the brethren, is like, if I focus on my listening to the Spirit and just kind of following promptings and things, then I have to trust that
Right.
if he's got someone picked out, and like, I'm waiting for her, she's waiting for me, our times aren't just quite ready yet, but they're gonna be, if I'm hearing him, if I'm trying to stay in tune with the Spirit, then I can presume, I should hope that, theoretically we will be led together. And so that's kind of where at least, especially since I'm like, I don't know what's coming in the future and stuff, like, that's my focus. It's like, well, let's try and get good at listening and following promptings, and just kind of like focus on paying attention to some of that stuff, so that then hopefully, when it matters, then,
When it's
it'll
moment, you
it'll be easy.
I found
I found you.
Yeah, it's you. No, that's a great segue into the topic. And I know we don't have a ton of time, but I think what you're trying to say is like, you got to have that faith that the Lord is guiding you and
Mhm.
that it's like maybe like the blessings that I thought I should have at this moment in my life, I don't have, but I have faith in the Lord and I can follow the Spirit and He will lead me where I need to go. And I think that sometimes, I mean, it's so easy to be said, like, oh yeah, just have faith, it'll all work out, right? It's so easy, but man,
It's just that easy. You just said it.
it's so hard to like, because you start fear, you get this fear in your heart. And I think that Satan uses that as a tool. A lot of times he likes self-doubt. Who would want me after, what chaos of my marriage, or maybe there's scenarios with your kids, or maybe, for us women, you've given birth to 7 kids and you just don't quite look the way you did when you first got married, and like we have these fears and these doubts that creep in that can kind of derail us from our faith, I think sometimes. So how is it that you, having gone through, graduated from what was it? What's the first one? The singles. I don't
I'm
know.
single adult.
I say, and are in mid singles now. Like, how is it that you've been able to keep going and having faith and not having that fear override you for the future?
I mean, I would definitely say it's been a battle off and on. Like there have been some times where it's like, nope, this was a dark moment where I was just I was, kind of depressed, and it was like, obviously nobody wants me, or else I'd be married by now, or other lines of thinking, kind of
Right.
similar things. And then also kind of recognizing that it's like, some people like, their 7 kids is their baggage. It's like, well, my baggage is having never been married. So now everyone's like, well, what's wrong with him? Because he hasn't been married, like he hasn't even, he doesn't even have one divorce under his belt. Like who would, obviously that he's broken or something, really, like he's rotten. He's like that avocado, you turn it over and you're like, yeah, not that one.
Yeah.
And like, and so anyway, so like, worries about that. And it's just like, no, but it's just kind of like, it's the same way you stay active in the church. And this was kind of one of the things that I felt like being like in YSA, is that it was definitely like a time of life where, like, even sometimes if you're living at home, but especially if you move off to college, you're moving out, getting your own place, or you've got roommates or whatever, it's no longer up to your parents to make sure that you go to church every week, or to, or do anything that is, living the gospel. You are now kind of, the training wheels are off. You now have to choose for yourself, what the verse that's, choose you, this day, like, will you serve the Lord and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, and you actually have to start actually living that. And so it's this, I feel like it's kind of the same thing with kind of keeping the faith that like Heavenly Father's got someone, or maybe a couple different someones, and I skipped a couple of them, but maybe there's still at least a couple left.
Yeah.
And, those, I may have to wait a little while to get to those. And so you just have to kind of, it's the same kind of like, you got to hold on to the rock. You got to, weather the storm, you got to hang on. And, if you wander, get yourself back. And so it's the same, keep the faith, hold on tight, like weather the storm, whatever metaphor, you latch onto or you're looking, resonates with you. It's the same thing. It's just more the same thing. It's, but it's, and then it's also like looking back at like, okay, what, spending a little bit more time thinking, like, all right, what does my patriarchal blessing say? And so there's some aspects to like subtle wording things that I'm suspicious that it's like, oh, maybe now that it's like, I'm starting to creep up on 40, that some of this verbiage maybe starts to make a little bit more sense in the context of being in the mid singles when I finally meet someone, or like, kind of midlife when I finally meet her, versus if I, met like right after I got off the plane for my mission. So anyway, so you start to see a little bit like small pieces of that kind of like, it's like, oh, well, and then obviously I'm sure I'll look back and be like, oh, the Spirit was whispering to me, like this idea or this notion that I'd had in my head for years was just the Spirit whispering to me, like, this is how things are going to work out. This is kind of the plan, or this is what it's going to be like. Because there have been other things in life where it's been like, I've just had this like repeated idea that just like every few months or something, it's like, this is going to be important, whatever this particular kind of a thing is. And it's years down the line, maybe even like on the order of like a decade or something. But then it's like, oh, this finally like came to fruition. This finally happened. The shoe finally dropped. And so, I mean, it's really easy to be like, oh, well, in life, we can always just look back and be like, oh, it always made sense. Like, if only we've been listening, then, it would have been easy. Like all the signs were there. Like he was always telling us things and we just weren't paying attention and weren't listening. Yep. And so I guess like at this point in my life, I'm just kind of like, well, I'm trying to listen, Father, and I'm trying to do point me in the direction that you want me to do, or that you want me to go. And I'm trying to listen. And so I'm trying to get better at listening. And so if I can get better at listening, then I have found that when I do listen, things work out pretty well. And so, I'm trying, just keep trying to embrace that and just keep hanging on. And if that's a struggle, then work on getting better at hearing and listening, and start with small stuff. One of my favorite talks was, it's probably 6 or 7 years ago now, but I think the talk was titled "What Lack I Yet?" It was, and he was like, look, if you are looking to improve, that's one of those things like, God bless me with patience. It's like, great, you're going to get some patience, and it's going to come in the form of something that's a major pain in the butt. Exactly. But he's like, if you start with, what lack I yet, and, he'll work with us and start with us with something smaller, and then can work with, because change can be difficult, and the big changes, the ones that really, really matter, are probably going to be the more difficult. And so if we can focus on all right, we're getting in a pattern of I'm just trying to polish off some edges. Let me start with one of the easy ones. We'll start there. And that was kind of the point of the talk that I really, really liked, is he was like, okay, his example was something about maybe stop cutting people off in traffic. Or it was something not what you would think as being a spiritual goal, but in the grand sense, it's no, this is making a better version of yourself. Well, and it was started with little things.
What's at the core of cutting someone off in traffic? That's the thing that you're adjusting, right?
It's exactly
the core reason behind, I feel like I need to cut someone off, right?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's your pride, it's your ego, it's becoming a person who doesn't cut people off in traffic. Yeah. And so making yourself into someone who doesn't feel the need to, or whatever. And so.
Yeah, cool.
So I like the part that you mentioned that to better yourself, because really that's the best use of your time. Well, I don't want to say wait, maybe wait. Yeah, wait is a good term, or be patient about.
Well, at General Conference, there was a whole talk about waiting on the Lord. So
yeah,
and the blessings that come to people who do.
Yeah, when I go through the ups and downs of oh my gosh, Heavenly Father, I've been dating. He's not where it's been 10 years. Where is he?
I know.
I'm
running out of time yet.
Give me a big
I just keep
here.
dropping eggs. Let's go.
Even if it's just for a month, or let's do this, So, no, but I think what I realize is that when I think too much of what I think I need, then I lose focus on the things that I can do as an individual. And then I have a neighbor who's like, you have so much time in your hand to think about who you're going to marry, And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Because instead of thinking about who I'm going to be dating next week, I can be maybe work on my business, or just put the energy back to me, lean back. And it's just more of the improvement that I can do for myself. And when you're a single parent, I know that's hard, but at the same time, there's that sense of fulfillment when you're actually doing something for you and you're seeing your progress. And progress for me is happiness. That's how you define it. And we're not a tree. We can move. We can change things. We can totally.
At best, we're maybe a house plant, but still, yeah, the point stands.
Right.
We're definitely mobile.
Right.
Some of us are pet rocks,
whatever.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
still movable, can be relocated for sure.
Right.
Well, and like what you were talking about, Christina, like it fell out of my head. The hymn about like go out and do something good instead of dreaming of your mansions above. Go out, do something good instead of dreaming about the man you're going to marry. We could maybe alter those lyrics a little bit. I get focus on what you can do now and become, a good instrument in the Lord's hands. And then hopefully he'll be like, hey, you're a good instrument. Here's another good instrument. You guys are going to work well together.
Make it work.
Make it work.
Well, I'm going
Yeah,
to
it's tough.
totally steal Christina's thing. She had said something way back when we had her on the podcast originally, and I don't even know if she remembers her saying this, but I've used this so many times on all these podcasts, is that she was saying, I'm just going to if I have to go through 1,000 people to get to the right person, then I'm going to do it. I will do the work to get there. Okay, if that one's not the right one, okay, bring on the next. I'm going to move on because the Lord has someone in mind. Our lives will merge. I just have to be dedicated to keep moving forward and not getting caught up in the fear of what's wrong with me, poor me, because we all have been there. We all have to reflect and say, like, why is this not working how I want it to? And so we have to just keep looking forward and saying, okay, well, I'm on number 76. Maybe the guy, or in my part, maybe the guy's number 79. I just got to keep moving forward. Christina, woohoo!
It is. And I use that analogy with some of my single friends as well. And it's actually my 99 men. So
there we go.
get to the one.
Not 1,000. It's a 99.
I knew there was a number. I just couldn't remember the number.
No, but it's the same concept. Those numbers, yeah, it's just a number, but it's also a stepping stone closer to your person. And it's okay. I mean, I'm just a firm believer that every person that comes in your life serves their purpose. There's always going to be a purpose. They may hurt you, you may hurt them, but at the end of the day, there's something that you will learn about you and about them and life in general. It's the fear of the unknown is what stops us from getting to that next number 75, number 74. It's the fear of the unknown. And in my experience, I have these two questions that I always ask myself. So I like this guy and I wanted to say hi, and I was getting very anxious about it before I said hi. And the first question that I ask when it's again, it's the fear of the unknown, is what's the worst thing that could happen if I said hi to this guy? If I said hi to this guy and he didn't say hi back, is that the worst? I mean, yeah, probably, because I like the guy. And then the second question after answering the worst is what's the best thing that could happen? Maybe he says hi back and then we start talking, and that can be so applicable in so many levels when we face the fear of the unknown. Of course, there's just, the fear is very headspace. And the more you're able to narrow it down to say, like, maybe it's not as bad as as I thought it was, then you can start reframing that and just going through life without the expectation. Without expectations is leads to frustration. So the less expectation, the less frustration you have. So I keep it light and fun. That's my motto whenever I go out on, like, meet people or go out on dates, like, light and fun, light and fun. I have a mantra before I get out the car: light and fun, light and fun.
Yep. Well, and like one of the, I think it was last summer, maybe this summer, I think it was last summer. There was one of the Facebook groups had a guest who was like a dating coach and stuff. And she's like, look, first couple of weeks, you guys your focus shouldn't be like, oh, can we get married? Like, do you think like, what size ring does she wear? I need to figure that out. Like your first couple of weeks, or like, whatever kind of like the dating frequency you have, is like, you guys should just be having fun. Like, if you can't get past, like, we just have fun together. And so like, then it's not worth pursuing. And so like, that should be like your first focus for the first couple of weeks. And so like, that totally makes sense. But then also to match with Corey's mention of sea shanties and stuff, I was thinking of like the 99 bottles on the wall song. And so you can just, 99 men on the wall, 99
Oh, there
men,
we
take them
go.
down, pass it around, 98 men on the wall.
That's awesome. It's a great concept though, and it's stuck with me, and I've used it on the podcast a million times. I've obviously used the wrong number because I think I've used 1,000 every time, but
That's good. 1,000 is
1,000,
good too. No, I like 1,000 because if you're, let's just say 100 times 10 years that you're waiting, yeah, pretty much it's
Okay. It's 1,000.
it's 1,000. So why not 999? So
Yeah, well, maybe you two good-looking women could pull off 99 men, but like some of us out there might not pull off the 99 men. It might take
Right.
us
I refer you back
Or
to
the
the
ni- I
fact
should say
that
the
our
99 women.
our inboxes are starved while yours are full. So
True. You guys are beating them off like, oh man, this is too much.
right. Oh my gosh. So what do you think? I lost my train of thought. I have a question, but
That's what happened to me. Mine went away and it never came back. That's what happens when I'm
That-
old.
that-
That's what happened.
that train has set
I'm
sail.
old.
It's gone.
Yeah. Well, I agree with everybody's comments. I agree. I think you have to overcome that fear. And I think the more you do something, the more that fear goes away. So you have to like Christina said, you have to just like say, what's the worst that can happen? Like,
Yeah, I
what's
like
the
that.
worst that can happen, And we all do scary things. It is not just, just outside of dating, we all do scary things or things that will be, like, ooh, this is a scary moment. And you have to kind of push through that. And you like Christina said, you have to say, well, what's the worst thing that can happen here? Like, like I don't like shots. I hate needles. I hate when they draw blood out of me. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put that needle in my vein. That's disgusting, right? So, but I have to do the same thing. I have to be like, what's the worst that can happen? Like it's pricks and stings for a little bit. I try to go to my happy place. Maybe talk to the nurse. Like, oh, that was
banter
a
a little bit.
surprise. Or you get too much in your head, and you're like, I don't want the needle. I don't want the
You
needle.
just think about the sucker they give you at the end, Corey.
That's
all you
right.
do.
I do.
Stickers
Yeah,
and
I go,
stickers.
hey,
Happy
since you gave me the infant needle, can I get the
And the little
I get
Star
the-
Wars Band-Aid, they're going to give you the Star Wars Band-Aid to go over top of it. So you'll be feeling good.
Oh man,
Yeah.
can I just say how much I appreciate being in an age where we actually have Star Wars Band-Aids? Because as like kind of a nerd
Yes.
kid growing up, that's everything I ever wanted in life, was to just have Star Wars everything, and now you actually can, and it's fantastic.
Mine is
right,
Hello
yeah.
Kitty. Hello Kitty
Hello
band.
Kitty.
Yeah.
Nice. I used to
See,
love that when I was little.
That's the double standard. Like grown women can wear Hello Kitty stuff, and everybody's like, that's so cute and sexy, right? If I want to wear like Star Wars underwear, man, I'm getting like, really, dude? Like, okay,
How is
off to the-
Kennedy knowing you're
off to the 98th.
They were talking about Band-Aids.
Have you seen, Corey, have you seen
Band-Aid.
the Facebook that gets passed around, probably on Facebook and stuff, where it's like how everyone thinks men are supposed to dress, and it's like they've got a suit and a tie and everything like that, and it's like how men really want to dress, and it's some guy dressed up in Mandalorian armor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's like, this is true. If little boys
True.
were like not like repressed by society as they grew up to be adults, they would
That
honestly
would be
tell you,
like
I want to
some
dress up like the
sleepers.
Mandalorian and wear that to work. That's what my dress code should be.
Oh.
Awesome.
Just go to that board meeting. You're sitting around the big boardroom, and you're like, yes, I'm in a Mandalorian suit. Deal with it.
You know what, guys? I've been thinking in this meeting, this is the way.
This is the way it
I'm
is.
assuming that's a quote from the
Probably is.
It is, yeah. So it's this big thing about it's kind of like how the Mandalorians say, like, yeah, I agree, or whatever. Like, yep, this is what we're gonna do. This is the way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, if you guys in the audience would like to participate and interact with us and ask a question or give us a comment, go ahead and raise your hand. Corey can give you the down low on how to do that if you want to. But yeah, come up. You want to ask Ryan a question, just let us know. We'll unmute you and we'll turn on your video and see if there's
Well, if you're on a computer and not on a tablet or some phone or something, you can click your Alt key and Y, and then you can. That's for Windows, and if it's an Apple, you use your Option Y, and then that'll raise the hand. And we'll get you in there. So, all right, we got our first candidate.
Diantha, come on. And if you cannot, for some reason, get your hand up, just text one of us or message one of us and we'll just put you in the line. All right, Diantha, you're up. You having a hard time with your mute?
Okay, good.
There she is. Hey, how are you?
Hey. Hi, Ryan. How are you?
Hi. Good.
I think we talked on one of those groups once, but I didn't know that the expectation was that I was supposed to message you. So sorry. Anyway,
it's social media. It's awkward. The rules are fluid.
super
It
awkward.
can be weird.
So I was wondering about stereotypes. I know because I've never been married myself. And so there's like a ton of stereotypes and they're like, oh my gosh, like, are you some kind of, freakazoid? Because, what's wrong with you? Anyway, I was just wondering how you dealt with that.
I don't know, like some of them I feel like I've kind of tried to like embrace, like, being a kid that was into Star Wars and kind of nerdy things and stuff. It was like, oh, maybe no one wants to date me because I'm a nerd. And it's like, at this point, I'm like, if she's not a bit of a nerd herself, then it may not work out. Like, there's got to be, it's just like, yeah, like maybe if she's like, because I'm not a sports nerd, and so maybe if she's just like a total sports nerd, then maybe we can kind of like have our different like nerddoms or something. But like just kind of like, yeah, just kind of learning to like, I've just, at least personally, I've just decided to like, nope, these are things that I like about myself. I'm going to embrace them. And you know what? And this is another one is like, God, you know what I like? You know who's going to be compatible and work with this kind of stuff, and just be like, nope, not in my hands. And just kind of, yeah, embrace it and stop like worrying about it, because, there's bigger picture stuff than, just stereotypes.
That's
So,
right, Ryan. We'll play D&D. The girls don't have to join.
So fun story, that friend of mine that was in the YSA group that I was, FHE parents with or whatever, she plays more D&D than I ever have like in my whole life. She was like, during 2020 was like, look, I want to try play D&D, and now she's running her own games, and she's, got an all girls group and stuff. So girls should not be counted out of playing Dungeons and Dragons or similar other role-playing games, because it's for everyone.
My sister, Christina, so she had breast cancer and she's been immunocompromised. She got her lung scarred and everything. So she's been playing Dungeons and Dragons on a regular basis. I'm really happy for her, because then she gets like her social in with her computer and everything. Like, it's really good. But I kind of want to circle back a little bit. I'm meaning like a little bit about stereotypes in our own culture. Like, have you been to a family ward yet? Like, I think you are right now, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've been going to a family ward for a few years now.
Yeah.
No, it's a little awkward. Fortunately, I've had good units that were, supportive and stuff. Since moving down south, then, I haven't been as involved, and then COVID happened, and, it hardly is anybody doing anything. But then before that, like, I was in a family ward that was kind of where I'd lived for the last, bunch of years. And no, they put me to work. They're like, all right, we're going to put you in as like a Sunday school teacher. We're going to put you in with the primary. We're going to put you in with the young men. So I don't know. I feel like it's just the same kind of like, if you've got a ward with good leadership, then they're going to be like, nope, we don't care like if they're single or not. Let's put them to work, because that's what the manual says. So I don't know.
Have you ever had? Sorry, just one more question. I'm sure there's like tons of people in the queue. Just one more question. Have you ever had couples be awkward around you because you're single? You're like, oh, he's gonna steal away my wife or whatever. I don't know.
No, but I will say there was a couple where I was a little awkward, because I thought the wife was super, super cute. And so I was just like, and just like really short answers, and like, don't make eye contact, and just like, so I was like, nope, I'm just gonna go back to my phone, or
Good
yeah,
choices on
just
that one.
keep it super safe.
So do either of you, since both of you guys are, we use the term never been married, Sarah on the last one was like, haven't married yet, positive outlook. with the new focus, at least not new focus, but with the focus in general conference where they're pointing out there are more like unmarried individuals versus married adults in the church. Do you think that that's going to help open up and kind of break those stereotypes? Because it happens a lot. And I think people have good intentions, but yeah, I think that sometimes if you're single, or if you're divorced or whatever, not so much if you're widowed, I don't think, but there tends to be a little bit of, they treat you a little differently. Do you think it's going to
Yeah.
be better?
I certainly hope so. I think that I think it certainly calls out kind of the problem that, you know, I've known about this for years because that's on the inside and stuff. But I think that there's also just kind of like some of the awkwardness is they just don't know what to do with you. And I think that's kind of the problem, is that there's like a lot of people, they just don't know. And then like some of them, I've discussed this with some other friends of mine, that I feel like there's kind of like once you get married, there's kind of like a lobotomy that you experience where you just completely forget what single life was like.
What it was like.
And so like you don't remember that everyone hates being set up on blind dates. And so, and like all these different kinds of things.
The blind
And
date,
so
just because you know two
oh, I know someone that
people
would be
doesn't mean they have
perfect
to
for
go
you.
together.
It's like, just because the thing we have in common is that we're both single doesn't mean that we're just going to hit it off.
Like you're
Like,
the two last people on the earth. Oh my gosh,
Yep.
I know someone else who's single. Y'all got to hook up.
Yep. Yeah. No, they just experience that lobotomy when they get married and they say, I do. And suddenly like it just falls out of their head, at least in the case of most of them. Most people, and it seems to just kind of, and so I think part of the problem is just like everyone forgets and they just don't know. But I kind of hope that the kind of bringing it to attention, like, you know, on a global scale, in the church is kind of going to help at least bring a little bit more awareness and like, no, okay, so you forgot, maybe ask them. Like most of them are grown adults, like they can have an adult conversation, like ask them and talk to them. And they're not just like, you know, we don't have the plague, we don't have, you know.
We can still actually pray. We can actually give talks. We can hold callings that are not like life.
Yeah.
Like
So, not me, but some of us play piano, or you know, we can do things. So
You know,
Yeah.
but my problem has never really been the calling area for me personally. My problem has been like you're walking down the hall and like they don't make eye contact with you. Like you're less than, because you know, like you're out to steal everybody's husband or whatever. You feel like that's how I feel. That's how I feel.
It's true.
Like
It's true. Like the wives in my ward, like the married women in my ward, that, you know, they're really sweet and nice. And then when their husband's like, man, Corey's a cool dude, maybe I'm gonna hang out with him, maybe go do mountain biking. And then they're like, no, you're not hanging out with a single dude. No way. And then like weeks later, the women aren't talking to me anymore. They're ignoring me. They're like walking by. I don't see Corey. And then their husbands stop talking to me. Like there's no more interaction with them. It's like, that's you know, I get it. I get it.
You're like a free radical.
Yeah. Well, I think
you
it's
don't have
fear.
like, yeah. You're like a electron without a proton, and so you're just floating around out there. And they're like, man, they're gonna steal away all of my other atom things. I can't remember all of it, but yeah. That's how
I think they're worried that if they're having any like rough patches in their marriage, or there's like, you know, situations, and she's like, oh, maybe my husband's gonna realize Corey's life is pretty darn good. You know, he's like, he can play D&D and not get yelled at.
Star Wars
watch Star Wars and nobody's gonna make fun of him.
He wears Star Wars band-aids. I mean, what more do you want?
Up is like
so cool. I want to leave this marriage so I can wear Star Wars band-aid. Yeah.
Like my wife yells at me all the time, and Corey's playing PlayStation.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing with that is there's always two sides of the story, you know. So for some who's experienced marriage and it wasn't so great, maybe you dance walking down the aisle, women or the sister will be like, I wish I had her life, or I have her life. And there's another way of looking at it, as far as like, I'm just fabulous. I'm just gonna walk down the aisle. Who cares? And then there's also the other side of just, yeah, I'm not good enough. And so you have to make those choices when you think about the perception about you, because it's your mind. Our minds is very powerful. So what you think is what you become.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I've experienced that. I just look at the hall, like the sacrament hall as a runway. I'm like, I'm gonna dress up. I'm gonna wear my high heels. I'm gonna strut, even though deep inside, I'm like, this is so awkward because I don't have a husband and I'm all by myself. But it's okay. It's okay. That's my runway right there. And I'm gonna like, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Bread.
You know what you need to do? You need to like totally send us a video of you strutting down the hall at church. Like take a video, like at least.
No. Christina's good at TikToks. I gotta see a TikTok
Yeah.
of you like.
Oh,
That
you
definitely
know-
sounds like TikTok material to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in slow
You gotta
motion.
get your hair down like this though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And have someone
There
like
you
go.
that,
Like, you have to do that.
just like strut down that hall like I am here, I am single, and I am fabulous.
And,
Yep.
and it's like, I'm sorry, I'm Ariel right here with my fork and my hair. Exactly.
I just think people at church just don't get my sense of humor sometimes because I might walk up to the front and be like, okay, I'm bearing my testimony for 2 reasons. I have a testimony, but also I want to take this darn mask off so that the single ladies in the ward can see me. And then, then some people kind of go, was he serious? Was that a joke?
And then,
I'm like, you guys just don't have a sense of humor.
and then another thing to look at it is, if they started ignoring you, they're not your people.
Yeah.
You want to be with your people. You want to be accepted for who you are. You want to be accepted for like being able to play D&D, moderation at all times, but you still have to be you. You still have to be your individual you with your
Right.
own interests as well as your partner. So you can have your alone time and your together time.
Yep.
I don't know.
Well, Ryan, nerds are king, man. Nerds are king nowadays, man.
Nerds are cool.
Nerds are
Look at
making
Elon
money.
Musk. That dude's one of the biggest nerds.
Well, all the nerds are the ones who rule the universe now. Like everybody's using their phones, they're on social media, they're using their laptops, their MacBooks, whatever it is. Come on, man. The nerds are kings, man. Own it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diantha, for coming on and bringing up a fun conversation. We appreciate
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Thanks.
Is there anybody else out there that would like to ask a question or have a comment real quick?
They'll probably chime in. They're in the after party, most likely.
Probably.
Yep.
So I wanted to just say one thing that was in that big block of combo we just had. And I think it was Ryan who had brought it up. And Christina kind of just tied it in at the end. But what's most important in my mind is that everybody is just comfortable in their own skin. And when that time comes when you're like meeting someone or interacting with someone, that you don't feel the need to be someone else because you want them to like you for you. You don't want to like alter yourself because guess what? Like down the road a piece, the real you's going to come out anyway, and maybe they won't like it. So I don't think you have to be like airing all your dirty laundry and stuff, but I think that it's really important to be authentic. And and if they, I've got OCD. OCD is not fun to deal with, but you know what? Whoever wants to fall in love with me has to fall in love with my OCD. Like that's just how it is. And I'm not going to hide it. It is who I am. They'd figure out down the road a piece anyway. So I think we just need to
Welcome to the club, sister.
Embrace
OCD all the way, baby.
like, it's annoying.
You should
but
see
it
my
is who I
desk. I've got
am.
everything all organized.
Like it is. But my point is that, you know what? We all have imperfections. We're not perfect. And we just need to be totally willing to embrace ourselves, because if we don't, it's going to be hard for someone else to embrace us. That's just my thought. But
Yep.
anyway. Okay.
Well,
Well,
you got to
it's
learn to
fun,
live
right?
with yourself
That
because
was good.
you're stuck with yourself.
Right. And why would I want someone to fall in love with me when they don't even know who I really am? Like
Mhm.
it makes no
true.
sense.
That's
Like, I
true.
want them to love me for me. All my OCD weirdness and all. Like it is just who I am, and you just gotta embrace
That's
it.
right. So you don't want them seeing your Star Wars underwear on your wedding night. You got to let them know that stuff's out there.
If they don't want to see
Man.
stories like lightsaber, we just
If I could get
move
Star
on.
Wars garments, man, I'd be on that.
You're gonna like sew a little Star Wars patch onto it, like, decorate your garment. Anyway.
Oh,
I might just get some Star Wars boxers just for a joke on my wedding night. Like when I get
There you
married, so
go.
they just throw them on and like come out of the bathroom and go,
Star Wars.
you can show up in your lingerie.
Man, That's awesome. Okay, so we are just
It could be worse. You could show up in your onesie. That'd be like even
Oh,
worse.
let's not do the onesie.
Yeah.
That was awesome, Ryan. It was awesome getting to know you, Ryan.
Yeah,
You're
Yeah.
a fun guy.
so fun to have you.
You're a
on.
good-looking guy. You're a fun guy, and you
Got
got a
great
great
personality.
job, great personality. And I don't, come on,
All the
ladies,
girls
get out there and
jump. Yeah,
some-
you gotta jump on this one
come on,
quick.
ladies.
It's gonna go fast.
Yeah.
I mean,
Before he
I
gets-
think you get top dollar if we had an auction tonight. So
It
We
starts
totally
at
should monetize him.
500,
Yes.
99, 499.
Fortnite.
Buddy.
I really wish I could just
499,
imitate that like auctioneer, like, hey,
Sold.
Up 1,000.
right.
Okay, so yes, thank you, Ryan, for coming on. We're so excited to have you on. You were great, wonderful host. I mean, guest, and you had a lot of great conversations. And we're gonna go ahead and turn it over into the after party. If you'd like to stay, where it's just where you know what it is. Okay.
Yep. I've been there, done that.
But we're gonna shut everything down so you guys can be
Yes.
free and let your hair down.
So
if
I
you
am
have any.
just about to stop the recording on Facebook Live, and then we will transition into our after party. Thanks for coming on.
To the after party. Thanks.